My name is Bianca, and I'm 26. My family once flew 15 states for my sister's gender reveal party. Florida to Washington, like it was the most important event of the year. Then, 1 month later, they couldn't make it to my wedding. Not one of them. The gender reveal was loud, expensive, and dramatic in that way my family loves when it's about my sister. Pink and blue balloons covered the house. There were cameras everywhere. My uncles took time off work. Cousins drove for hours. And my parents acted like this party was a national holiday. When the confetti cannon went off and pink paper rained down, everyone screamed like they'd won something. My mom cried. My dad hugged my sister like she'd just cured a disease. Someone even shouted, "This is the happiest day our family has had in years." I smiled and clapped, standing off to the side refilling drinks, trying not to let one quiet thought grow teeth in my chest. Would they show up like this for me? A month later, I got my answer. My husband and I didn't have a massive wedding. We rented a small venue with soft lights and simple flowers. We paid for it ourselves, because I learned early that expecting my family to contribute meant paying a price later. My husband's family arrived early, filling one side of the room with warm chatter and hugs. His mom adjusted my veil like I was already her daughter. His dad shook my hand and said he was proud of me. The other side of the room, the side meant for my family, looked like a ghost section. Rows of empty chairs, an entire blank space where my childhood was supposed to sit. My phone buzzed that morning with messages that all sounded different, but meant the same thing. Sorry. Something came up. Flights got complicated. We'll celebrate another time. Another time. Those words felt like knives. Because just 30 days earlier, flights hadn't been complicated at all when my sister wanted confetti and attention. I smiled through the ceremony anyway, not because I wasn't hurt, but because my husband squeezed my hand and whispered, "We don't need them." I held on to that sentence like a railing. But after the last song faded and guests started leaving, I walked into the bathroom, locked the door, and stared at myself in the mirror. I wasn't crying like in the movies. I was staring, quiet, hollow, like my brain was still trying to find the reason that would make it hurt less. Growing up, my sister had always been the center of everything. Her birthdays were huge parties. Mine were quiet dinners. When she graduated college, my parents threw a 3-day celebration. When I finished my degree, they mailed a card, and somehow I kept telling myself it wasn't favoritism. It was just family dynamics. That empty row at my wedding was the moment denial finally broke. For weeks after, I said nothing. I didn't call them. I didn't argue. I didn't beg for an explanation. Because I didn't want their excuses. I focused on building my new life with my husband. We unpacked gifts. We made dinner in our tiny kitchen. We laughed at dumb shows. We did what you do when you're trying to heal. You build a life so full that the absence stops echoing. Then, 34 days after my wedding, my phone exploded. It wasn't one call. It was a flood. Hundreds of calls. Texts. Voicemails from every last one of them. My mother. My father. My sister. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. My screen lit up nonstop like it was on fire. For a second, I thought someone died. I thought there was a car crash. A heart attack. Something terrible. But the truth wasn't tragedy. It was greed. The first voicemail I listened to was from my father. His voice sounded nothing like the confident man who used to tell me I was too sensitive whenever I noticed how differently they treated my sister. This time he sounded rushed and uneasy. "Bianca, call me back right now. We need to talk. There's been a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding. I almost laughed. Because there was no misunderstanding. The truth had simply reached them, and they couldn't handle it. I listened to more. My aunt left 3 messages in a row asking if the news was true. A cousin suddenly wrote a long paragraph about how proud he was of me, even though he hadn't cared enough to attend my wedding. My sister's message was the shortest. "Why didn't you tell us?" Not congratulations. Not, "I'm sorry we missed your wedding." Just anger that she hadn't been included in the story. And then came my mother's voicemail. The one that finally made everything click. Her voice trembled like she wanted to sound heartbroken. But underneath it was fear. Bianca, please call me. We didn't know. We would have come to the wedding if we'd known what you were going through. If we'd known. That sentence is disgusting when you translate it honestly. It means, if we'd known you were valuable, we would have shown up. My husband walked in while I was staring at my phone. He sat beside me and asked quietly, "What are you going to do?" I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the endless missed calls. And for the first time since my wedding, I felt calm. Not because I was okay, but because I finally understood the rule. People who love you don't need headlines to show up. They don't need money to care. They just come. If your whole family skipped your wedding, then blew up your phone the moment you got successful, would you answer or ignore? Comment, answer or ignore? Here's what they discovered. The part that made them panic. For years, while they were busy celebrating my sister's milestones and ignoring mine, I'd been quietly building something of my own. When I graduated, I didn't just start working. I started a tech consulting company with 2 friends from college. We worked long nights, took risks, and slowly grew it into something real. I never talked about it much around my family because they rarely asked about my life anyway. The few times I mentioned work, my mom interrupted with updates about my sister. My dad joked that I should get a real stable job someday. So I stopped explaining. I just kept building. And then the company exploded. A major corporation acquired our startup for an amount that changed everything. Overnight, my name showed up in business articles. Interviews were published online. My face appeared next to headlines about a 26-year-old founder whose company had been bought for millions. That was the lightning strike that finally hit my family. Suddenly, the daughter they ignored wasn't the quiet one anymore. I was the one they wanted to claim. That's the part people don't understand about families like mine. They don't reach out because they miss you. They reach out because your value became public. And now they want a piece of it. Or at least the reflected glow. The calls kept coming. My aunt begged to reconnect. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in years sent a message about family sticking together. One uncle hinted about investment opportunities. It was almost impressive how quickly everyone remembered my name. My sister texted again. "Why didn't you tell us?" I stared at it, thumb hovering, and realized something. She truly believed I owed her my news. Not because she cared, but because she needed to be the center. And my success threatened that. I didn't respond. My mom tried again, this time with a softer voice like she was testing a new costume. "Sweetheart, we're so proud of you. We didn't know. We would have shown up." There it was again. We would have shown up if you were worth it. My husband watched me, waiting. He didn't push. He didn't tell me what to do. He just stayed close, the way a safe person does. I pressed the power button and silenced my phone. The quiet that followed wasn't sad. It was powerful. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't reacting to them. I was choosing me. Weeks passed. The calls slowed, then surged again whenever a new article came out. I started getting messages from relatives I barely remembered. People who never asked about my wedding but suddenly wanted to catch up. Every message had the same smell, like cheap perfume trying to cover rot. Finally, I decided to send one message. Not a conversation, not a debate. One sentence. In the family group chat, where everyone could see it at once. I wrote, "My entire family flew 15 states for my sister's gender reveal. But not one of you showed up to my wedding. Now you know the truth about my life. And it cost you everything." I stared at the screen after I hit send. No one replied for a long time. And honestly, I didn't expect them to. Because there's no response that fixes an empty row at your wedding. Some moments pass and never come back. My wedding day was one of them. A day later, my sister finally wrote, "That's unfair." Unfair. That word from her was almost funny. She got every celebration, every flight, every hug, every family dollar and ounce of attention. And she still called it unfair that I refused to be ignored quietly. My dad tried calling again, probably hoping to take control with his voice. I didn't pick up. My mom sent a long text about family mistakes and starting over and putting the past behind us. But there was still no apology for missing my wedding. No acknowledgement of what they did. Just a sudden desire to reconnect now that I had something they could benefit from. So I did what I should have done years earlier. I stopped negotiating with people who only show up for profit. My husband and I moved to a new city, far from the noise and guilt. We built a home filled with people who actually show up. Friends who bring soup when you're sick. Neighbors who help without keeping score. A life where love doesn't require proof of success. Sometimes my phone still lights up with messages from relatives trying to reconnect. The words are always polished, always friendly, always conveniently timed. But the silence between us says more than any apology ever could. They made their choice the day they left those chairs empty at my wedding. And now they finally understand something they ignored for 26 years. The daughter they treated like nothing was the one person they should have valued without conditions. If this story made you feel something, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss more powerful stories like this.